everybody, welcome back to Wednesday Fitness. Today I'm going to share with you guys 2 important points when considering running. I think it's probably somewhat neglected or it's not really talked about, mainly because I think we focus a lot on like your legs and your running technique and your hips, and not to say that none of those things are important, because they definitely are very, very important when you're running, but I think these 2 are as equally important, if not a little bit more important, because it's what's going to help enable you to have that endurance and also kind of prevent you from stopping your running journey too early. So the first one is your breathing technique. I have found that breathing is one of those things that sometimes you have to reteach people. As a personal trainer, I feel like I've had to kind of help people remember how to breathe when they're working out, because they don't realize they hold their breath or they create tension in their body in certain times when they're executing an exercise, and I have to go, relax, breathe, exhale, and so with that said, I think that when we're running, it's equally more important to create a breathing pattern or a breathing rhythm. So a breathing pattern would be more of like how your body breathes as you run, and maybe that's something you can think about, like try it on a treadmill or try it when you're running outside, and like, okay, well, where is my breathing coming from? Is it coming from the middle part of my back, or is it coming a lot from my chest where I'm up here more, or am I just like up here, and it's more abdominal? So let me kind of explain a little bit of the a small anatomy to it. So you've got this let's call it like a container, right? It's like your pressure gauge. It's what helps keep everything in, and it's what helps basically allow for proper pressure management of your body. Okay, so you've got your transverse muscles, which kind of acts like a corset that brings everything in. And then you've got your recti abdominal muscles, which kind of come down, and it's where you get those nice like 6-pack abs. And then you've got your internal and external rotator obliques, right? And so those muscles are just going to help for rotation. And with all of that, you also have 2 things that are tied to this little canister, which is your diaphragm. As you're inhaling in, you kind of bring that up, exhale, it kind of drops it down. Then you've got your pelvic floor down, a little bit lower, and that's responsible for kind of keeping all the intestines up and away from their reproductive system, and kind of creates that nice cushion. So one of the things that you have to take into consideration as a runner is that you are pounding your feet on top of whatever terrain you're running on, and as you're doing that, you're kind of juggling your intestines, I guess is the best way I'm going to say it. And as you're kind of creating this shaking movement, you want to make sure that your pelvic floor is strong and you don't destroy the lining, because if you destroy the lining, then it's going to make it weaker, and it causes everything else in your reproductive area to basically drop, and everything else kind of retroactively creates a domino effect. So if you look on this diagram that I'm showing you, you see the pelvic floor, and then you see the bladder in the front, and then you see the uterus kind of right above the bladder, and then you see the colon. And so if you end up having a weak pelvic floor, you can actually cause the uterus, or you can cause the bladder to fall, which is 2 types of prolapse. So could they both fall? It's possible. I've heard of uterus prolapse. I've heard of bladder prolapse. One that I heard more common amongst runners is their bladder actually, falling into the mesh. So this is why it's really important to maintain that pelvic floor. As you can see, it just really lines underneath your entire reproductive area. And I can't tell you guys enough how much I've actually heard this has happened to a lot of women who've stopped their running journey because of the fact that they experienced prolapse and didn't take into account that as they're running, they needed to actually work on strengthening pelvic floor at the same time or even prior to starting their running journey. So this is something that I would highly encourage to do So that way you are preventing yourself from injury in the future. And when it comes to breathing, and why breathing is so important, it kind of ties into this, is because remember that canister kind of works together. It's going to cause a lift into your diaphragm, a pressure down into your pelvic floor as you're taking your breath. So some runners like myself, I do a certain breathing technique where it's in, out, out. So it'll sound a little bit like this. It'll be so as I'm taking that inhale, I'm feeling my rib cage expanding. Okay, so it blows up into that rib cage and exhales. The transverse muscles are working, they're pressing it inward and they are coming in, but it's not putting a lot of pressure in my pelvic floor. So I'm preventing that pressure. But if I was to run and do, and I'm letting my belly protrude, then what that's gonna do is that my stomach and my abs are actually gonna apply a lot of pressure into that pelvic floor. And so what we don't want is to allow for so much pressure to be placed onto our pelvic floor, especially when we're running. And so that's one of the reasons why I really highly suggest doing a really good ab workout either after your run or before your run. Generally, when I was in ROTC and I was training, they would always have us do our push-ups, our pull-ups, and our sit-ups all before our 3-mile run. And so that's one of the things that you can, incorporate into your routine. It's up to you, especially if you know you're planning on running. Like, do your core first, because sometimes by the time you do your 3-mile, or whatever, how many miles you decide to run, you might be so exhausted you're gonna be like, I don't want to do abs, because you're like, I'm already wasted. So this is something to definitely take into consideration. So I hope that this video was very informative and was very helpful for you, especially in your running journey. And I will share with you guys in the next video maybe some ab workouts that you can do to challenge your core and hit all 3 of those muscle groups we talked about: the transverse, the erector abdominal, and the internal external obliques. So stay tuned, guys, as we continue on this journey of fitness and health, and obviously the most other important things I will share down the line of maybe what to do nutritionally as well. Thanks again so much for watching, and if you guys enjoyed this video or felt like it was helpful, feel free to share it and like and follow. All right, guys, have a great day. May you live, thrive, and be healthy. Take care.